Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Today is Monday, November 25th here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's been an interesting weekend, has it not? We obviously talked a lot about the Cleveland Steelers game and what happened there. No NFL action for the Bengals. The Ravens, they're on Monday night tonight against the Chargers. But around the NFL, I thought there were some interesting storylines. The Washington Commanders losing. How does that look? The Eagles won again, a Steelers opponent upcoming. All of it funnels to one thing for me, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But I want to remind you first, this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. So where that goes in my brain, anyway, is the importance of the Bengals game this Sunday, which, I don't know, maybe you're watching this, listening to this, you assumed it was important, and you probably did, and that's fair. It's not going to be easy. And the way the Steelers' schedule sets up the rest of the way, they can't afford to lose this. They can't afford to let some of the struggles that we saw against the Browns snowball. And there are a couple things to that. One, defensively, stopping the pass. This is one of the best, maybe the best offense they're going to see the rest of the way. Is that crazy? No, not necessarily. Reading a little bit and looking into this more on Sunday, but what Joe Burrow has done, what Jamar Chase has done, I know it was good. I didn't know it was this good. Just on historic level, well, not historic level pace, but they're having the top quarterback, having the top receiver, even having the top pass rusher. There was an article in the Post-Gazette on Sunday about this, and I didn't even realize it. That's never happened before. But this Bengals offense is for real. Again, if you look at their losses, 6 of the 7 have come by 7 or fewer points due to missed field goals and a whole bunch of stuff. Last week, they nearly lost to the Chargers, probably should have, they did lose to the Chargers. They shouldn't have lost to the Chargers if Evan McPherson would have hit those 2 second-half field goals. But my point is that a lot of the issues that we saw creep up in the Cleveland game need to be fixed and need to be fixed in a hurry. What are those issues? Well, a big one for me is the use of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and how you maintain the 2-quarterback system. Ray Fittipaldo wrote about this at post-gazette.com. You can check out Ray's story, but it's a difficult needle the Steelers are trying to thread. And some of what I'm talking about is Justin Fields throwing a pass late in the game. I think if you give Mike Tomlin or Arthur Smith a do-over on that, they probably don't want him attempting that pass. Or if they do, maybe they would have wanted to use him or have him warmed up to the game a little bit more than they did. I don't love having Justin Fields attempting passes in such a crucial situation. I don't know about you. That's why you bring Russell Wilson here. You bring Russell Wilson here to command the offense, to produce in crunch time, all of that stuff. If he doesn't do it, then you react accordingly, right? Now, Justin Fields obviously is a weapon. The good of what you saw, the 30-yard run, love that. But they need to figure out a better script, a better usage of Justin Fields. Get him involved early. If he's going to be passing a little bit later in the game, maybe have him attempt 1 or 2 early on. But again, this is still a somewhat new system. He was in there for 7 snaps, I believe, against the Browns. I think he lined up for an 8th, but the play never counted. Either way, got to figure that out. Is that the biggest thing? Probably not. As I'm talking about the Bengals offense, one of the things that I'm looking at going into this week is the pass rush. What can they do better? TJ Watt, for instance. Like, nobody questions TJ Watt and how talented he is and his motor and all that stuff. What I would question right now is the Steelers' usage of him, or what they're doing to get him away from chips, get him away from double teams, that sort of thing. And I'd like to see them be a little bit more creative against the Bengals. Line up TJ Watt different places. Disguise some blitzes, twists, stunts. Anything you can do to sort of confuse the Bengals as to where TJ Watt's coming from. I think that's an important thing. The running game is another for me. Najee Harris, remember a couple weeks back, the conversation was, did the Steelers mess up not picking up his 5th-year option? What can Najee Harris be in this offense? All of that stuff. That's not the conversation now. The weeks I'm talking about, 106, 102, 114. Those are his rushing totals then. The last three, 53, 63, and 41. Over his past three, Najee's averaging just 2.9 yards per carry. No, that's not all Najee. It's some of the offensive line. I thought the offensive line did not play particularly well against the Browns. There's a great opportunity to improve those numbers against the Bengals. Again, I was talking about the Bengals and the prolific offense and all this stuff. And even Hendrickson has rushed the quarterback, but this is not a good defense. This is one the Steelers should absolutely be able to run on. All right, we're going to take our usual mid-podcast break. On the other side, I want to talk a little bit briefly about Russell Wilson and then get into some Pirates topics. But first, a message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
And welcome back to First 10. We're here Monday through Friday, middle of the morning, about 10 minutes, bouncing around, talking about some different things. There was a report a couple days ago, it came out in The Athletic from Diana Rossini about Russell Wilson and the Steelers and the expectation that he would stay around. I was sort of amazed that this was a thing or a question. That's sort of how our Jerry Dulac, who obviously does a tremendous job with this stuff, has sort of framed Russ's tenure in Pittsburgh to this point. And I've seen nothing of Russ that would lead me to think otherwise. Right? I mean, yes, there's the final 6 games, the playoffs or whatever. Things could come unglued and maybe move in a different direction. That's fine. But as of now, to this point, I mean, he wasn't the problem in Cleveland. They had many other things to worry about. Russ actually had a pretty decent game. His leadership, the way he commands the room, the way people respond to him, how he's thought about by Mike Tomlin, like, I don't understand. Yeah, of course he's going to stick. He genuinely likes it here. 5 games, Russell Wilson, 63.1% completion percentage, 242.2 yards per game, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 8.1 yards per attempt, a 98.6 rating. All right, let's put that last number in context a little bit. In Russ's Seattle days, he was at 101.8. So they're getting pretty darn close to his Seattle level production. What's the problem here? Kenny Pickett, for instance, I looked that up just to have some, again, another comparison, 6.3 yards per attempt, again, compared to 8.1 for Russ, 179 yards per game, again, compared to 242 for Russ, 78.8 rating, again, compared to 98.6 for Russ. What are we talking about here? I know, but Russ is going to be back. They're going to figure out a way for him to stay. I don't think it's that big a thing. All right, Pirates-wise, they made a couple of moves last week. I wanted to get into them. I think they're important, and I think they open the door for some change in the outfield. I think they call attention to a need for a certain type of player. They could change the roles of others. The 2 big ones I'm talking about, non-tendering Bryan De La Cruz and Connor Joe. Can't say I'm terribly surprised based on what the projected arbitration earnings are for those guys. For De La Cruz, it was $4 million. For Connor Joe, I believe it was 3.2. But the production has not matched what that number would be. It hasn't. Connor Joe, I expected him to get non-tendered. I don't think they have a role for him anymore. And if they address first base the way I think and hope they will, they really won't have a role for him. Now, De La Cruz was a different philosophical question because they traded for him at the deadline. They gave prospects up to get him. And he came here with the, attractive point is that he had years of club control. They were going to have him for a while at a relatively decent salary. Now, you know what happened after the Pirates acquired him. He wasn't good. 514 OPS, all these things, 3 homers. Came here, it hit 18, but just didn't do anything. So what do? You're left with the decision. Do you give him more runway and allow him to produce, or do you move on? And honestly, I give Ben Cherington credit on this. I've been critical of Cherington's other moves, and you can sit here and criticize the trade. That's fine. But the move to continue down the path with De La Cruz when I don't think there's enough there, it's the right one. It's the right one. And what that tells me, or what where my head goes, I should say. I'm not saying they're going to do this. I think they should do that. There's a difference. Is address right field in a meaningful way. Maybe give a path to some playing time for Jack Sawinski. I don't want to completely block him, but I'd be okay if you kind of rotated the DH spot. I'd be okay if you maybe tried Bryan Reynolds at first base. I don't even know how I would feel about occasionally using O'Neal Cruz at shortstop. But right now, what the Pirates need to do is get the most offense out of their lineup. And so they're saying Bryan De La Cruz is not acceptable for $4 million. I agree with them. You would probably agree with them. So to me, the onus becomes going to get something better than that. What can they do on the open market? I think that's a bigger discussion. I don't have time for it here, maybe throughout the week, but a Tyler O'Neill, that'd be nice. Even a Max Kepler, somebody with some ties to Derek Shelton from Minnesota. But it opens up an entirely different discussion, and I do think it was the right move to make. Thanks so much for watching First 10, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get all of this content and so much more at our Post-Gazette, North Shore Drive, YouTube, and podcast network. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks for watching First 10.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.